Hello, welcome to the Sideboard here at the Star City Games Players Championship, brought to you by Ultimate Guard and Carnox Chairs. I'm Nick Miller alongside Season 1 Invitational Champion Collin Rountree. We're talking Legacy today, a format you did not play to qualify, but you do have 2 Grand Prix top 8s this year, one of which, with Death and Taxes, the deck you have registered for this event. How do you feel about your choice? It has been a popular deck to kind of attack the meta at previous PCs, and it looks pretty well positioned this weekend as well.
Yeah, I really like the deck in general. It's really good against just an open field. Knowing deck list lets you mulligan more aggressively, which normally when you play Death and Taxes, you just keep all your hands and hope that they line up well. I like it against the control decks without Terminus or sweepers, and a lot of the sweeper lists look like they play like one Supreme Verdict. So it's a deck that seems like it should prey on the field pretty well this weekend, as long as people aren't playing combo, which I don't think many people are.
Right, it is a very fair field, which I think if you're in your shoes, you're going to be pretty happy. We're going to dive into the deck here. Not a lot has changed in this deck over this year. It occasionally gets new cards. We'll get to those when we see them. But the usual suspects here, Mother of Runes, Flicker Wisp, these cards are always in the deck. Mirran Crusader here, this is like a flex slot, but talk about these cards. These are just bread and butter.
Yeah, the
DMT
deck's
cards.
Pretty much the same it's been for the last 3 years, minus a few cards. Flicker Wisp, just one of the best cards in the deck. Lets you get tricky, play around your opponent's spot removal, get rid of their lands on their end step. It's a real card that lets you be really creative throughout the games. Mirran Crusader is a card that you mostly just want against Bug, which I don't think a lot of people are playing this weekend. But at one point when I was testing, I was thinking maybe a lot of people would play Bug, and I had a 3 Mirran Crusader build. But I ended up just going with 1, which I'm pretty sure I'll be thankful I did. And 4 Mother Runes, just the stock, give all your creatures protection. They can't kill any of your creatures. You get to deal with all their things.
Yeah, and one question here. Obviously, Wrenn and 6 was banned pretty recently. A lot of decks had been using Giver of Runes as well. No copies of Giver of Runes in this list, correct?
Yeah, I think the deck is just unplayable in a Wrenn and 6 format, so moving back to this just makes a lot of sense because Giver of Runes not being able to protect itself is a really big deal.
Right, so we'll move on here through the rest of the creatures as we get to Recruiter the Guard, just this engine that lets you find all of your one-ofs that we'll see scattered through the deck. Palace Jailer, of course, one of the newer additions of this deck. It's been around for a while, but this card is just a house.
Yeah, Palace Jailer is pretty much my doppelganger. We are the same person. I am Palace Jailer. This card is unreal with Flicker Wisp, which we saw previous. You just keep exiling all their creatures. It's really easy to stay the Monarch and keep it forever when you're playing Death and Taxes with Palace Jailer, Flicker Wisp, Mother of Runes to block and give protection. This card is usually pretty bad in a format that has lots of true name Nemesises. Nemesi?
Yeah, both work.
But thankfully, I don't think that's what we're dealing with here. And it's just a card I really enjoy. And being able to search it with Recruiter the Guard is a really big deal.
Right. Phyrexian Revoker here, just your little engine that can shut down whatever you need in a pinch.
Yeah, even choosing something as easy as like Astrolabe can shut people down really easy. And helps with ports and wastelands. Really helps you out.
Right. When with a lot of people getting greedy with Arcum's Astrolabe in this format,
really
that's
greedy.
Something nice to have. We'll move on here through the rest of the cards. These are the other staples to this deck. Thalia, Stoneforge Mystic. These are never going anywhere in this deck.
Yeah, just being able to get Batter Skull, taxing all their spells, punishing them for playing 1-mana 1/1s or 1-mana Astrolabes that just draw a card. And then Prelate, being able to punish Terminuses, Supreme Verdicts, Plow, other people's spot removal spells, really good.
Right. Moving on here. This is Aether Vial. This is the kind of the key of the deck. Everything functions through this card. 4 copies. Then your equipment will be coming up in a Walking Ballista here. Also just a great card. Your other piece of equipment, Jit, and the Sword of Fire and Ice. Were there any considerations for other equipment, or are you just happy with those 3?
I'm happy with those 3. I think they're really good, just in general. You have to have access to at least those 3. You could play additional ones in your sideboard, like Manriki Gusari or Sword of Black and Green. But in the end, you just want to have a really clean list. And going back to Aether Vial, you would just want one of those in your hand every single time if you could choose.
Yeah. Another deck that gets a nice advantage with the London Mulligan, you get to search for Vial, probably.
And then if you want it, you can keep it, and if you don't, you can get rid of it.
Right. Then the mana base here, a lot of planes, which we'll see here in a minute, but you also have flexibility here with Caracas, Mistress Factory, Rashadan Port, Wasteland coming up. This deck gets to do a lot with its mana. Talk about some of the utilities that these cards have.
This card bounces Hogak, which is a really big deal. It also bounces all your Thalias, so it can help protect them in a pinch. This card's pretty good against Oko, Teferi, Jace the Mind Sculptor. Good at just carrying equipment, can help your Stoneforge draws out. And then, like I said earlier, being able to port things with Revoker can help really constrain them out. And then also with Vial, port's a really big deal because you're not using your mana to cast spells, you're using it to tap their lands. And then you're also getting an advantage from your Aether Vials.
Right, putting the whole tax effect really into effect.
Exactly, because in the end, you're just a control deck.
Tapping all their lands, blowing up their lands. And making their spells cost more. You also have a pretty flexible sideboard here with a lot of utility cards. We've got the Cataclysm, just everyone's favorite D&T sideboard card, just to blow everything up. This is against mostly Tundra decks, I assume.
Yeah, Tundras, and then some Bayou decks that you would maybe consider boarding it against. I really don't like the Cataclysm, but it's also really good to just high roll people on the Cataclysm and get them good.
Council's Judgment, a catch-all to basically anything, even True Name Nemesis, as you mentioned before, kind of an enemy of this deck. Containment Priest as some graveyard hate or, combo-y hate.
With Flicker Wisp.
Yeah. We'll move on here. Gideon, ally of Zendikar, 1 copy. Talk about the inclusion here.
Yeah, it's sort of like the Cataclysm. You want to punish the Force of Will decks for either boarding out Force of Will in their decks, or maybe you can set up board states where you can resolve your removal spells. I mean, your big payoffs like Cataclysm and Gideon through what they have going on with Port, Thalia, things like that. So, in my experience, I would want to board out Force of Will against a deck like mine because I don't want to fight it on that axis. But the Gideon and the Cataclysm helps you punish that a lot.
Right. We have the Leon and Relic Warder. Either Sworn Canonist is good against the stack-based combo decks and a lot of spell decks. And then we'll see some more here. More removal with Path to Exile. Usually things like Delver, you just want extra removal spells.
Exactly. Dreadhorde Arcanist is a really problematic card if you can't remove it.
Another Jailer. Another Crusader. We already kind of went over these cards, but Rest in Peace, Pithing Needle. These are your other shutdown.
Yeah, being able to deal with Oko and then maybe even in the mirror, if not relevant, but if you could deal with Jite or Aether Vial, and then Sneak and Show, you would maybe deal with Sneak Attack, but not super relevant for this tournament. And then Rest in Peace. Lots of people are going to play Hogak this weekend. You got to make sure you can exile everything. So it seems like an important card as well.
Between Rest in Peace and Caracas, you have a decent amount of interaction for the Hogak deck. One of your big fears here in this format with a very fair metagame. How did you feel preparing for this event? What did you expect to see in the field for Legacy?
I mostly just expected a lot of the Snow Control deck and the Delver deck. And I expected maybe people to go back to the Hogak deck because I thought the deck was just good in general. But I think that my deck is really good for the field and lines up really well because people are not playing Storm or Sneak and Show. Or I guess Sneak and Show is actually pretty good for me, but like a lot of the combo decks are what your worst matchup are.
Yeah.
So being good against all the fair decks is a nice place to be.
All right, well, we know you're well-versed with this deck. We know you know the format, so we're expecting big things out of Legacy from you. How do you feel coming into the event with your deck choice?
I feel really good about all my deck choices. I think that going fair in the open deck list field, making sure that you have good matchups across the board is a nice place to be.
All right, Invitational Champion Collin Rountree, wish you the best of luck here at the Players' Championship.